My adoptive sister fell for my husband and wanted a grand wedding. My parents forced me to give up my husband. Anyway, Felix already married you. What's wrong with letting Carrie enjoy the ceremony? They're not even getting registered. In my past life, I watched helplessly as they passionately kissed at the wedding, accepting everyone's blessings. On the wedding night, my husband, with teary eyes, pinned her on the bed and said, "I don't care whose name is on the marriage certificate. You're my only bride in this life." He proudly took her to parties, declaring their undying love to the world. As for me, secretly married to him, I died on their wedding anniversary when he set off fireworks across the city for her, and I never got to see him one last time. Reborn before we registered, I spent half a year securing a position at a top design studio abroad. They notified me to start in country Y in 7 days. The day I got the offer, I closed my studio and had a farewell meal with the staff. An employee asked, "Are you going back to be Felix's wife? He loves you so much." I just gave a small smile and didn't say a word. When I got home, the villa's living room was bustling. For pairs of eyes turned to me simultaneously. Felix was the first to approach, pulling me towards the sofa in a hurry. "Why didn't you answer the phone? Carrie's headache is back. Give her a massage, please." I didn't move, just looked at the 4 expecting faces. It stung a bit and I said tiredly, "I have work to do." My mom frowned tightly. "What's so busy about your tiny studio? I told you to come back and take care of Carrie. Our family won't let you starve." Felix, surprised, noticed the smell of alcohol on me, gently held me and coaxed, "Did you drink? Want to rest first?" I was dazed for a moment, this gentle Felix overlapping with him from that year, that fire. That day at the mall bathroom, smoke and searing fire pounded at the door, as if to swallow me whole. I was scorched all over, choking, eyes streaming with tears, falling into despair. When I was about to lose breath, someone burst in, used wet clothes to cover my mouth and nose, and frantically carried me to the fire escape. The flames at the door singed his hair, yet he didn't care, repeatedly calling my name, telling me not to fall asleep. That version of Felix I loved for a lifetime and hated for a lifetime. Later, I overheard him saying to others that his biggest regret was marrying me for his grandpa, preventing Carrie from officially becoming his wife. He owed her. I clenched my fists, took a deep breath, holding back tears, and calmly said, "There are maids. If it doesn't work, I'll get her a masseuse." My mother's face fell, glaring at me. "What masseuse? Carrie's used to your touch. Hurry over." Felix looked down at me, his voice carrying a note of finality. "Massage Carrie first, and tonight I'll help with your work." I laughed at myself, looked at them indifferently without speaking. Ever since Carrie came to my home, she's been the sole princess here. Our families have been friends, but ours only recently got rich like nouveau riche. Carrie's parents died in a car accident, saving the children in the back seat. Those children were me and Carrie. Afterwards, my parents adopted Carrie, saying, "Carrie's hurt badly and lost her parents. You must give way to her." To care for her feelings, they had me move into the storage room, simply because Carrie said there could only be one princess at home. I couldn't get good grades anymore because Carrie's weren't great, and she couldn't take the shock. She suffered head and abdomen injuries, leaving her with complications, often needing blood transfusions, and I, with the same blood type, became her blood bank. Pretty clothes, jewelry, if she liked them, they were forcibly moved to her room. My parents, along with my husband, unconsciously favored her unconditionally. Even when she wanted to hold a wedding with her brother-in-law, they showed no discontent and went all out to fulfill her wish. Seeing me silent, Carrie started sobbing quietly, looking at Felix with red eyes. His arm around me quickly let go. He gave me a glance, stepped over, and held Carrie in his arms, listening to her cry out in grievance. "Felix, it hurts so much. I can't take it much longer. I dreamed of my parents last night. They said they can't rest easy. If no one properly cares for me, they'll take me away." Hearing this, everyone's faces turned pale, glaring at me, looking like I was the villain causing her misfortune. She cried so fiercely, clutching Felix's neck, breathing heavily, "Felix, if you marry my sister, will you abandon me?" Felix tightened his hold on her, eyes full of tenderness. "I'll never abandon you." And I clearly saw him whisper in her ear, "I love you." A sharp pain shot through my heart as if a hammer struck it hard. They've been together this early. And I, in my past life, was foolishly tricked by him, married, waiting for him my whole life. The dull pain within I suppressed, turning towards the storage room by the stairs. A loud shout came from behind. Are you rebelling? Didn't you hear to massage Carrie? If you don't come, you won't be leaving this house again. That's my dad's voice. He's always been bossy, naturally authoritative, now exuding a chilling aura. Once, when Carrie accused me of pushing her down the stairs, I wouldn't admit it. He locked me in the basement without food for 3 days. Closing my eyes, I thought about leaving in 7 days. I shouldn't stir trouble. So, swallowing the bitterness, I slowly walked back to the sofa. Carrie lay in Felix's arms, looking at me triumphantly. I pretended not to see, kept my head down, wanting to get through those 30 minutes quickly. Towards the end, the table was already set with food. Mom, with a doting smile, asked Felix to bring Carrie over for dinner. He glanced at me with a slight hint of pleading and said, "Join us for a bit more. Don't upset Auntie." Facing 2 disapproving looks from the other side, I slowly followed along. The table was filled with seafood, each dish prepared in different ways. Everyone stared eagerly at Carrie, asking what she wanted to eat and if she desired anything else. Nobody remembered. I'm allergic to seafood. I picked up the glass of plain water in front of me, drinking a sip with a blank expression. Meanwhile, Felix put on gloves and started peeling shrimp for Carrie. "Feed me, will you? I want the spicy sauce." Carrie didn't seem to have a headache anymore. She looked playfully at Felix, putting on a sweet act. Felix, full of smiles, offered the dipped lobster to her mouth. After she ate, he even wiped the sauce from her lips, gently caressing her twice. The two seemed to enjoy these openly affectionate gestures. Felix occasionally glanced at me, feeling guilty, and said, "Carrie likes things clean. I just cleaned it up for her." With a sarcastic smile on my lips, I remained silent the whole time. Finally, after they finished eating, as I stood up to leave, Carrie pulled me back, tearfully saying, "Sis, can you let me have the wedding? I know your arranged marriage can't be cancelled. I don't want status. I just wish to have a wedding with Felix while I'm still alive. I don't know how long my health will hold up." As she spoke, she started crying again. The air around felt momentarily still, or maybe it was just an illusion. Mom and Dad's faces showed no change, no one uttered a reproachful word, and their eyes were still filled with sympathy. Felix held her, looking at me with guilt, but he didn't speak, just seemed to console Carrie by gently rubbing her back. I flashed a sarcastic smile. "All right, we haven't registered yet anyway." Hearing this, Felix sat up straight. He seemed disbelieving, staring at me with a stiff expression. Mom frowned, looking angry. "This marriage was arranged by Felix's grandpa. It can't be reversed. How can you be so thoughtless? Not a bit of consideration for the family." I ignored her, slightly curling my lips at Felix. "What do you think?" A hint of panic flashed across his face. He pushed Carrie away and walked towards me, reaching out to hold my hand. "Molly, don't say this out of anger. I will marry you. Carrie just wants to fulfill a wish because of her health. We won't have anything else." I looked at him calmly. In my past life, not long after we registered, Carrie fainted again and needed a blood transfusion. I gave her 800 milliliters of blood in 2 days, fainting in the hospital. When I woke up, there was no one by my bed. Upstairs, in a private ward, Carrie was getting an endless supply of nourishing supplements. I called Felix asking where he was, and he said he was busy with work. But when I dragged my weak body upstairs, there he was, feeding Carrie himself and then cleaning her. The two of them flirted openly without a care. I didn't know what Carrie whispered, but he leaned down and kissed her hard. I said nothing for a long time, while the person in front of me looked pale and increasingly anxious. I sarcastically remarked, "If you marry me, you can't have a wedding with her." He opened his mouth to say something, but when he saw Carrie faint onto the dining chair, he harshly let go of my hand and rushed over to hold her. Mom anxiously shouted, "Quick, quick, call an ambulance." She turned around, nearly poking her finger in my face, and growled angrily, "You just can't stand seeing Carrie doing well, can you? Would you only be satisfied if you caused her death?" Dad checked on Carrie while glaring at me darkly. "If you still want to be my daughter, then agree, or else I'll consider you no daughter of mine." Carefully, Felix picked Carrie up and ran outside. As he passed me, his eyes evaded mine. "Molly, don't act up now, trust me, you're the only one in my heart." And then he only hesitated for a moment before quickly disappearing out the door. Watching their backs, I let out a cold sneer. In my past life, I was pampered till 10 years old. After Carrie came, I was suddenly neglected. In my confusion, I kept reflecting on myself, wondering if I had done something wrong, or if I wasn't good enough for Mom and Dad to suddenly stop loving me. I longed so much to regain their affection that no matter how unreasonable their demands were, I would back down and yield endlessly. Dying once made me realize that whether they love me or not doesn't matter. I must love myself. I expressionlessly walked into the storage room to pack my things. There wasn't much to take. A single suitcase held everything. I gathered the rest for donation to Project Hope. This cleared some space in the narrow room. After thinking for a moment, I made a call, and it was quickly answered. I asked calmly, "Is the dashcam footage repaired?" "Rest assured, it's all fixed." I gave a small smile. "Send it to this address in 7 days. Calmly, I gave the address of the villa, instructing him to personally deliver it to my dad. In my past life, Carrie claimed the car accident was because I was messing around in the car, and no matter how much I explained, no one believed me. This time, let the dashcam reveal the truth. 3 days later, they finally returned from the hospital with Carrie. Just as I was about to leave, we bumped into each other. Carrie, in a white summer dress, cheerfully held Felix's arm, playfully saying, "Felix, I want the wedding at a 5-star hotel." Felix's doting expression turned pale when he saw me. He rarely studied my expression. Perhaps I was too calm, but he unexpectedly let go of Carrie and walked quickly over to me, a bit tense, saying, "Molly, don't misunderstand. Carrie and I are just having a wedding, nothing more. I've already scheduled our registration. We'll do that before the wedding." I smirked. Well, if Carrie wants that position, she can have it. In my past life, they kept the wedding a secret from me. I was almost the last to know about it. Someone sent me a livestream link, and when I clicked in, they were already at the vow and kiss part. They kissed passionately in front of everyone. From that day on, as Felix's hidden wife, I watched my husband with his wedding bride, day in and day out. He flaunted his love for her, and his eyes were always full of affection when he looked at her. The only time he'd acknowledge me was when we went to see Grandpa, and even then he was frosty. In my past life, I was too hung up on Felix saving my life. I couldn't admit he'd love someone else. I gave up my career, turned into a miserable woman, cried and fought, but I couldn't let go. Until the end, I was his wife in the shadows, and he never came to see me before I died. On their anniversary, he planned a citywide fireworks show for her. It was under those fireworks that I unwillingly took my last breath. Now Felix is grabbing me, refusing to let go, and I can see panic in his eyes. I sneer, meeting his gaze head on. "You want it all, but you're not getting it. If you push me to get the marriage certificate, I'll post it on social media and expose Carrie as the homewrecker." No sooner had I said that than someone rushed out from behind him. They pushed Felix aside and slapped me hard across the face. "Carrie's parents saved you, and this is how you repay them? You're ungrateful and don't deserve to be this family's daughter." Holding my now red and swollen cheek, I chuckled sarcastically. "I know. You only ever had one daughter." He hesitated for a moment. Then came Carrie's anguished voice, "Dad, Felix, my head hurts." Everyone immediately rushed to her side, comforting and escorting her inside. Expressionless, I turned to leave and headed to the immigration office to finalize my visa. On my way back, I got a call from the Y Country Design Studio. The contact, also Chinese, had a cultured voice. He gave some joining instructions and finally asked with a chuckle, "Are you coming temporarily or immigrating?" "Immigrating," I replied firmly. He seemed pleased. "Hope to see you soon." I hung up and returned to the villa in good spirits, only to find Felix looking cold and standing by the door, staring at me. "Immigration? Who's immigrating?" "An employee," I replied casually. He breathed a sigh of relief, his expression softening as he put an arm around my shoulders. After a moment he said, "Dad wants to see you. There's something to discuss." My heart skipped. It's about Carrie, surely. True enough, the moment I walked in and before I could sit, Dad said icily, "Carrie and Felix are hosting a wedding. She'll officially join the wealthy, but her status is awkward. She needs a suitable identity. You have a design studio, right? Transfer it to her." Carrie's parents died suddenly without a will. Their estate got divided among her uncle and aunt, leaving her with only a shell company. Out of pity or whatever, they always made me yield to Carrie. In my past life I gave them the wedding, the studio. Because Carrie was injured and couldn't have kids, I didn't even have the right to that. Felix only said Carrie couldn't handle the stress and never touched me until I died. I smiled lightly, feeling utterly at peace inside. Seeing me silent, Dad's tone grew stern. Carrie's parents saved your life. Consider it returning the favor. We won't ask you to give anything else afterward. He's been in business for years, unlike Mom, who's clueless about the world. He knew my studio was high value, and since graduating, I'd been grabbing international design awards, making my studio a hotspot. But he didn't know I'd already taken it apart. With a flawless smile I said, "All right, I'll handle the transfer in a few days." Relieved, Dad nodded. "I knew you were a good kid. If you were like this sooner, I wouldn't have hit you." Even Mom spared me a glance without her usual anger. Now this is a happy family. I internally scoffed and didn't bother with their theatrics. Carrie, with a slightly smug look, faced me head-on. I smiled back, watching her expression change slowly. Unusually, Felix followed me to the storage room. Standing in the narrow space, he seemed dazed, then worriedly asked, "Molly, where's your stuff?" They wore out, wanted something new, so I tossed them, I responded coolly. Appearing somewhat pained, he hugged me, cooing, "I'll buy whatever you like." Gently he brushed the bruise on my face from the slap, tenderly kissing it, murmuring, "Carrie's health is poor. This will be the last time, and I promise I'll make it up to you." Inside I felt nothing. I knew his family was deeply involved in defense and couldn't leave the country. "So Felix, there's no future for us, not even meeting again." In the next 3 days, everyone was coming and going early. Carrie posted, "Rehearsing for the wedding of the century." "Sure, here's the translation." I gave a thumbs up. And right away more messages came through. "Molly, so what if you're the real daughter of this family? Everything of yours will be mine. What's a marriage certificate? I'll have everything of Felix. And you'll always be that rat in the gutter, getting no blessings." I silently took a screenshot and sent it. "Print this out and send it along with the other stuff." The weather was nice on the day I left. On the way to the airport, Felix unexpectedly called me via video. He looked serious for 2 minutes before asking where I was going. I smiled, "A nice place." There was a flash of panic in his eyes, and he urgently said, "Molly, don't go running around. I'll be back this afternoon to pick you up, and we'll go register for marriage." I looked at him calmly, without saying anything. I heard Carrie's voice in the background. "Today's the last day of rehearsal, Felix. In a few days I'll be your bride." He frowned slightly but didn't reply. Then my mom appeared on the screen, urging me to transfer the studio to Carrie. I nodded and said something unrelated. "Blessings." Felix looked tense and asked me, "Molly, who are you blessing?" I just smiled. "Bless everyone." At this point even Dad came over with a rare smile. "You've finally grown up. Don't worry, the family won't treat you badly." I smiled indifferently. It was a rare peaceful atmosphere. But Felix looked at my face, uneasy, sensing something was off with me these days, though he couldn't quite say what. Unfounded fear started rising in him. Someone urged him to hurry up again. Before hanging up, I calmly called out, "Dad, Mom." They were obviously impatient, urging Felix to hang up quickly. I smiled and said goodbye, then hung up myself. Dad, Mom, Felix, goodbye forever. Before entering the airport, I turned back with my small suitcase, taking one last look at this city I had lived in for 2 lifetimes. Then I resolutely stepped inside. In Y Country, the person who had assisted me previously was there to pick me up. He stood out in the crowd with a bouquet, catching everyone's attention, with several girls nearby taking pictures of him on their phones. Seeing my name on the card, I walked straight over and called out, "Nolan?" Upon seeing me, his eyes lit up. He handed me the flowers and said with a smile, "Molly looks even more beautiful than in the photos." As I took the flowers, he grabbed my small suitcase and gently asked if I wanted to head back to the apartment first. I nodded. The apartment was prepared by the studio for me, and had already been transferred when I arrived. Before entering, Nolan handed me an envelope, probably containing the property deed and such. As I opened the door, I was amazed by the ocean view through the floor-to-ceiling windows and let out a spirited shout. The apartment wasn't as big as the villa back home, but it faced the sea with excellent lighting, offering a space of true freedom just for myself. I spent the night shopping for curtains, carpets, and wall hangings I liked. I also picked up various quirky art pieces at a flea market to decorate the place myself. Lying back on the sofa, my heart, which had felt empty since my rebirth, finally felt full. Listening to the sound of the waves, tears welled up in my eyes. A life truly my own, finally firmly in my hands after 2 lifetimes. Early the next morning, I opened the door to leave for work and saw Nolan's car parked on the street outside my apartment. Seeing me, he waved. Not wanting to trouble him too much, I smiled and said, "The studio provided me with a car, so I'll drive myself to work from now on." Sitting in the driver's seat, he handed me a bagged breakfast and smiled slightly. "It's no bother. I'm heading this way anyway." The car drove towards EC Studio. It was a place I had yearned for a long time. In a previous life, EC had offered me an olive branch too. But after obtaining a marriage certificate with Felix, I faded out of the design scene, handed over my studio to Carrie, and devoted myself entirely to being a wealthy housewife waiting for a husband who never came home. Feeling a slight pang in my heart, Nolan's bright voice pulled me back to reality. "We're here." Looking out the window, I saw a building shaped like a crescent moon wave, nestled in the bustling city, yet maintaining a tranquil, natural beauty. My emotions surged, and I was so excited that my hand trembled as I opened the car door. Nolan gave me a deep look, stood by my side, and gently said, "It's an honor for EC to have you." Sophisticated as ever, he offered me his arm with a smile. Would I be lucky enough to have the honor of being Molly's tour guide? I smiled, not pretending to be demure, gently took his arm and said, "Lead the way, please." The EC building had 22 floors. It would take a whole day to see it all. Nolan led me to the 21st floor, stating that I would be working there in the future, and showed me the trophies and works the studio had won in various design competitions over the years. The CEO's assistant personally handled my entry process, showing utmost respect, momentarily surprised to see Nolan, yet quickly returned to normal. The office was spacious and comfortable, my preferred impressionist style. Nolan introduced me to the designers in the studio. I lingered momentarily with a girl named Alan, who gave me a bright smile. Remembering how she was falsely accused in my previous life, I slightly frowned before nodding at her. Once everything was settled, I sat alone in my office browsing projects. When I took a break, my phone alarm rang. I curved my lips, simultaneously turning on multiple surveillance monitors with my tablet. Felix and Carrie appeared in the center. Felix was distracted, unable to reach Molly. With Carrie clutching his arm, she spoke intimately. "Felix, don't worry. My sister won't answer because she's busy with work. In a few days I'll be your bride and I'm nervous. Can you keep me company?" Felix managed to muster a weak smile, but he couldn't shake off Molly's distant look from their video call yesterday. That smile of hers felt like the relief of letting go, and it made him inexplicably uneasy. He gently pushed Carrie aside, looking at her with a bit of guilt. "I need to go pick her up from the studio. She didn't come back yesterday, and I need to take her to get the marriage certificate today." Carrie clung to his hand, looking a little upset. "Felix, you said you were going to marry her. She'll definitely come back later. Can you spend some more time with me before you get married to her?" Felix paused, hesitated, and finally gave in to her tearful eyes. He raised his hand to wipe her tears and said, "All right." Inside the villa, Molly's mom came out, smiling at Carrie. "Carrie, the wedding dress has arrived. Come try it on." Carrie quickly pecked Felix on the cheek, blushing, and ran inside. Seeing Felix's frown, Molly's mom's face turned stern. "Felix, even though Carrie's not legally wed to you, she's still your acknowledged wife. You need to treat her well. As for Molly, what more could she want after marrying you? Don't spoil her too much." After a pause, she asked, "She hasn't answered her phone, has she?" Noticing Felix's silence, she grew more furious and grabbed her phone, grumbling, "She's out of hand. I'll call her back and let her dad discipline her." Unfortunately, her call went unanswered too. Molly never ignored a call from her before. Frustrated, she glared at the phone screen and said to Felix, "Call her assistant and tell her to come back immediately." Felix took out his phone, fumbled for a moment before finding Molly's assistant's number. He hadn't saved it, but when he blocked Molly for not accepting Carrie, she'd called him from her assistant's phone. The assistant picked up pretty quickly, but their reply shocked him. What? Felix, Molly didn't tell you? She closed the studio down 7 days ago. Felix's face turned ashen, gripping the phone until his knuckles turned white. The assistant, unaware of Felix's reaction, chuckled. You and Molly have such a good relationship, always picking her up from work. Maybe she's planning a surprise for you. We teased her about becoming a full-time wife and she just smiled. Anyway, congrats to you and Molly on your marriage. Felix's expression finally softened a bit, and he said thank you before hanging up. Molly's mom, puzzled, looked at him and after careful choice of words he said, Molly closed the studio. That caused an uproar, and Molly's mom was furious, turning pale with rage. How dare she close the studio? That was Carrie's dowry and her status symbol. Molly has become impossible. How can she not stand Carrie having good things? How did I raise such an ungrateful daughter? Felix recalled the assistant's words, and with a complicated expression, tried to comfort Molly's mom. Auntie, Molly closed the studio a while ago. Maybe she just wants to be a full-time wife. Molly's mom was even angrier. She can't just close the studio. She refuses to give Carrie anything good. Right then another person walked in. Molly's dad came in hurriedly, carrying a box. Molly's mom went up to complain about Molly, but her attention was caught by the box. What's that? Molly's dad shook his head. Some guy gave it to me outside, said I had to open it myself. He placed the box on the table in the yard, opened it and found an old dashcam inside. Confused, he took it out and hit play. Inside, a young Molly's firm voice came out. Carrie, don't you dare talk about my parents like that. The other voice sneered with Carrie's sharp tone. Your parents are just country bumpkins, they stink. Just looking at them makes me want to puke. You really think having some money makes you upper class? Dream on. Molly, your parents are the most disgusting people I've ever seen. I wouldn't step foot in your house. Molly's trembling, angry voice defended her parents. You're lying. My parents are the best. They're hardworking and kind and built a school for our town. They're heroes. You're just snobbish. There was a loud slap sound, and Carrie's parents' voices were heard trying to intervene. Carrie, you can't talk to Mr. and Mrs. like that, and you definitely can't hit people. Apologize to Molly. But Carrie shrieked. You're my parents. Why are you siding with her? She's a filthy beggar from a low-life family, just like her parents. I won't let her in our car. Her mom tried to reason gently. Carrie, of course, Mommy loves you most and will always back you. But you'll hurt Molly this way. Soon, I'll take you back from your grandma and raise you. You didn't learn well there. That seemed to provoke Carrie. And then her mom's scream filled the air. Carrie, let go of Mommy's hand, Mommy's driving. Her dad shouted in fear as well. Carrie, let go. There's a car coming. Then came the sound of a horrific crash and screams. The dashcam crackled and went silent. The villa courtyard fell into a dead silence. The three people stood there, pale and frozen. Molly's mom clutched her mouth, crying out, Carrie, you beast. Molly's dad stormed in, face all twisted with rage, and yanked Carrie outside, tossing her to the ground. He switched on the dashcam again, glaring down at her. Carrie was terrified. She crawled to Felix, grabbing his pant leg, crying, Felix, it's not true. Someone set me up. It must be my sister. She's scared I'd take you away. You've got to believe me, I didn't do it. Felix pushed her away coldly, holding a printout of her nasty chats with Molly. He looked at her with disappointment, saying, haven't we been good to you? Why would you treat Molly like this? Hearing this, Molly's mom rushed over, pulling Carrie's hair, yelling, from the day you entered our home, what did we ever do to wrong you? We treated you with kindness, even gave you the sweets Molly cherishes, and this is how you repay us? I've been blind to have sacrificed my daughter's well-being for an ingrate like you. My Molly. I'm so sorry, dear. Crying, she pleaded with Felix, Felix, fine Molly. Bring my daughter back. Carrie kept begging, trying to hold on to Molly's mom, teary-eyed. Mom, I've always seen you as my mother. Are you abandoning me? Molly's mom yanked her hair harder, slamming her head down, shouting, I held you dear and gave you what was Molly's. How dare you say I'm not your mom? If I had known, I wouldn't have taken you in, even if you were left in the cold to wild dogs. Molly's dad, livid, came over, striking Carrie. You dare speak to me like that? I'll teach you. Carrie dodged the hits, crying, blurting out, who gave you the right to hit me? You spoiled me yourselves, I never asked for it. Molly being overlooked isn't my fault. I've never seen parents like you so blind. You expect her to be grateful? Aren't you counting on me in the future? Her retorts earned her more beatdowns. Molly's father dragged her to the basement. As Molly's mother stood, shell-shocked, calling Molly's name, she begged Felix to bring her back. A while later, after some calls, Felix told Molly's mom, devastated, Molly has renounced her Chinese citizenship. After witnessing the chaos, I turned off the surveillance. Before leaving, I installed some hidden cameras, just to see their reactions when the truth hit them. Feeling relieved, I realized these people no longer affected me. I anonymously uploaded recordings of them pressing me about the wedding to an online platform. A knock on the door, and Alan entered with her contest entry for this year's jewelry design competition. It was the Tears of a Mermaid brooch, a piece from the past tangled in plagiarism allegations. This work would soon be accused of being identical to another by AF Studio, branded as a copied design. EC Studio, as a result, fell from grace. Decades later, when both works' drafts came to light, tech could prove Tears of a Mermaid was finished first by a month. The world was astonished, but Alan, accused unfairly, had succumbed to severe depression and passed away. EC Studio, once a powerhouse, was reduced to nearly nothing. I looked at Alan, still a bright, vibrant young woman. I asked cautiously, who else has seen the sketches besides me? Alan paused. My assistant, Eric. I had Alan sit, questioning, do you trust Eric completely? Confused, she said, Eric's not just my assistant, he's my boyfriend. Seeing a possible issue, I suggested this piece can be refined. I need you to stay at the company to work on it with me. Can you do that? She nodded, ready to text someone, but I gently stopped her. Let's keep this a secret. Sensing something, she agreed with a mischievous smile. I'll tell him I'm on a trip. We worked tirelessly on the sketches, modifying until it was unrecognizable. Complimenting me, she laughed. They say the new design director is award-winning. I was skeptical, but now I concede to your brilliance. The design competition results were announced. A piece called Tears of an Angel, drawing parallels with ours, sparked discussion. Shocked, Alan cried, realizing her narrow escape from trouble without changing her piece. As colleagues inquired, her assistant, Eric, unnerved, attempted to leave. Security caught him, and within 30 minutes the truth was out. Thanks to our efforts, Alan won a gold, stood vindicated, and took Eric and AF Studios' Sarah to court over Tears of an Angel. Eric and Sarah are a couple, and they want to use Alan to get ahead. In their past lives, their selfishness cost a design genius and a top studio. In this life, they paid the price early on. Alan is incredibly grateful to me, calling me his savior and master every time we meet. Even Nolan found it amusing. Nolan said I saved EC and appointed me vice president at a high-level meeting. It was only then that I realized he was the man behind EC. With a flourishing business, the next day, he sent a truckload of roses to the downstairs of the company. In the gentle breeze, rose petals danced, filling the whole street with a faint fragrance. Amidst the petals and the aroma, he produced a ring and confessed his feelings to me. I didn't feel a deep connection with him, so I politely declined with a smile as people around us cheered. He didn't seem to mind and laughed, saying, figured that much. Just an appetizer. I just wanted to let you know, I'm going to pursue you. Nolan had many ways of wooing me. Flower fields, castles, auroras, romantic and heartwarming. The more ordinary ways included dinner dates and movie nights. One time, while dining, I overheard two Chinese girls at the next table talking loudly about some wealthy family back home. You heard about the A-City elite family? It's such a big deal, everyone in the country knows. That adopted daughter trying to steal the real daughter's husband. That recording was explosive. A bunch of people ganged up on the real daughter, forcing her to give up the wedding for the adopted sister. High society can be so dirty, they dare to do things under the table. I heard the adopted girl was sent to the countryside of their old home, married off by her grandma to an old widower. Didn't she want to get married so badly? Getting what she asked for. And those parents supposedly are looking for their real daughter. Her dad got tricked into going to a remote mountain area and broke both legs. Her mom isn't doing well either, acting crazy and calling every girl she saw her daughter. They said someone called the cops several times, and now she's in a psychiatric hospital. Word is the real daughter moved abroad. Felix, due to family reasons, was restricted from leaving the country. But it seems he gave up the family estate and plans to move abroad. I looked at the person across from me, who was smiling a magnified grin. I looked puzzled and asked, "What's up?" He laughed. "This gossip's pretty funny. Since it's so funny, will you agree to be with me?" Saying that, he handed me an expensive gift. Naturally, I took it, the 99th gift. His eyes lit up. "So you've kept count.